The pounding on the employee corridor door came again, 3 hard strikes that rattled the metal shelves inside the pantry. Elena Russo pressed both hands over her mouth, but a broken breath escaped beneath the roar of the banquet kitchen. She crouched between flour sacks, her phone glowing beside her with Marco's name on the screen. She left it untouched. The call stopped. Another began. The pantry door opened a few inches. Dante Moretti stood in the gap, an empty white bowl in one hand. His dark hair was swept back, his jaw marked by a short, neat shadow. He looked young enough to surprise anyone who knew what his silence could do. He looked at her, then at the phone, then at the second phone call starting on the floor. Elena. She wiped her face and stood. Mr. Moretti. I'm sorry. His gaze moved to the towel around her wrist. A thin red line showed beneath it. The corridor door shook again. Elena. Marco called. Open the door. We need to talk. Dante's expression went cold. Who is that? Nobody. Marco struck the metal. Don't make a scene. Dante looked at her. Do you want him inside? She shook her head. He crossed the passage, took the key beside the emergency light, opened the door a fraction, and shut it before Marco could push through. Then he turned the key. He had locked Marco out, not Elena in. Dante placed the key on the counter. The route to the kitchen and front entrance stayed open. Take the key, leave through the ballroom, or tell me to go with you, he said. Nothing here is keeping you. Marco rattled the handle. Moretti? This is a Bellini matter. Dante ignored him, set down the bowl, and faced Elena. He had been noticing her for months, soup without fennel, dishwashers fed before herself, loose hair retied when tired. Tonight the elastic still sat around her wrist. Who hurt you? The question did not sound like an interrogation. It sounded like a man asking for the name of an enemy he had already decided to remember. Elena's fingers closed around the towel. Nobody hurt me. Another blow struck the corridor door. Don't lie to me while he's standing outside, Dante said. She looked at the key on the counter. It was close enough to reach. The open pantry was behind her. The kitchen was full of people who would have followed Dante's order without asking what happened. Yet he had given her the route out before he asked her for the truth. That kindness broke something she had spent 2 years holding together. It's my former boyfriend, she whispered. Dante's jaw tightened. Marco Bellini? She looked up sharply. You know him? I know the Bellini name. I know the badge he is wearing. Marco called again through the door. Elena, don't let him turn this into a family insult. We need 5 minutes. That's all. She closed her eyes. How long has he been coming here? Dante asked. A few weeks. How many weeks? 6. Maybe 7. He let the answer settle. He offered no lecture about waiting or reporting it, and kept his hands away from her wrist. Instead, he looked at the empty bowl between them. You were going to leave after service, he said. She laughed once without humor. I always leave after service. You stay until the corridor is empty. Her throat tightened. It is my job. Your job ends when the work ends. It doesn't require you to wait until the man outside becomes bored. The corridor door shook again, weaker this time. Marco had realized the lock would not yield to his hand. Elena stared at Dante. Please don't make this bigger than it is. He followed you into my property wearing a family access badge. He put his hands on you. He is hitting a door because you said no. It is already as big as it is. The words should have frightened her. Instead, they made her feel visible. Dante turned toward the kitchen pass. No plates leave this station for 5 minutes. The sous chef froze. Sir? 5 minutes, Dante repeated. Tell the ballroom there is a delay. Pay the staff for the delay. He called neither a guard nor a driver. He stayed beside the locked door and returned his attention to Elena. What do you want me to do? She had expected an order. A command. A promise that he would handle everything while she stood somewhere quiet and grateful. The question left her without a script. I don't know, she admitted. Then we start with what you do know. Do you want the door opened? No. Do you want Marco removed from the property? Her breath caught. Yes. Do you want to speak to him yourself? She looked toward the main kitchen, where 6 employees were pretending not to listen. Not alone. Good. The word held no judgment. Dante took a linen napkin from a stack and placed it beside the key. You can change your mind. You can decide whether the next person who hears this is a police officer, a venue manager, or nobody tonight. I will not make that decision for you. Elena pressed the napkin to her eyes. Why are you doing this? Because you are afraid. That isn't an answer. His eyes moved to the bowl. You leave me soup when everyone else leaves me instructions. The absurdity of it almost made her smile. You don't like fennel. I hate fennel. You never said anything. You never put it in the bowl. Her mouth trembled. The smallest laugh escaped before she could stop it. Dante watched it appear as though he had been waiting for that sound all night. Marco's voice came through the door again. Dante, you are making a mistake. My family has supplied this venue for 20 years. You do not break an agreement over a woman who is confused. Elena flinched at the word. Dante heard it. He doesn't get to define you. He knows what happens if you break the agreement. So do I. Then let me leave. Not through the back door. She looked at him. I can resign. Tonight. No one has to fight with anyone. You can resign tomorrow if you still want to. Tonight, you are not disappearing to make two families comfortable. He picked up the key and held it out to her, palm open. She could take it. She could unlock the door. She could walk away from him and the whole impossible night. After a moment, she took the key. It was cold against her palm. I don't want him inside, she said. He won't be. I don't want anyone putting me in a car and telling me it is for my safety. Then no one will put you in a car. And I don't want anyone telling him I still love him just because I am too tired to fight. Dante's gaze held hers. Then you will say what you want said. The kitchen timer rang. 5 minutes had passed. Outside the locked door, Marco had gone silent. Dante did not move toward the ballroom until Elena nodded. Stay, she said. It was the first thing she had ever asked him for. I am staying. The kitchen resumed around them, but the night had changed. Elena tied her hair with shaking fingers. Dante watched until the knot held, then picked up the empty bowl. Come back to the pass when you are ready, he said. I will be there. She followed him out of the pantry because she wanted to, not because the locked door left her nowhere else to go. That difference was small enough for no one else to see. It changed everything. Elena made it through the next 20 minutes by turning work into a series of things she could touch. She checked the last trays, counted the clean spoons, and moved a stack of plates away from the edge of the counter. 2 young servers looked at her with worried faces. She told them the delay was under control and sent them to take sandwiches to the dishwashers. Dante remained near the service pass, black jacket cutting a severe line through the white uniforms and stainless steel. He kept his distance while watching openly. Whenever Elena looked up, he was there. At the end of the service, she untied her apron and discovered a folded paper in her pocket. Her resignation note. She had written it 3 days earlier, when Marco had sent a photograph of the employee entrance and a message that read, "You cannot hide in his kitchen forever." Elena carried the paper to Dante's small office beside the ballroom instead of giving it to the manager. She placed it on the desk between them. I was going to leave tonight, she said. Dante read the first line, then folded the paper without opening it again. Why? Because my staying here is no longer fair to the company. Your work has never been unfair to this company. You know what I mean. I know you are trying to solve his behavior by removing yourself from every place he can reach. She looked toward the ballroom doors. Beyond them, guests were laughing over dessert. His family supplies half your private events. If you throw him out, they will say you chose a kitchen worker over an agreement your father made. I may choose a kitchen worker over an agreement my father made. You say that because you have not seen the bill. I have seen worse bills. She shook her head. That is the part people like about you. You make every sacrifice sound easy. This one is not easy. He pushed the resignation note back toward her. But it is mine to pay. The sentence struck her harder than any promise could have. You cannot pay for my life, she said. I am not trying to. I am asking you to tell me what you want done with the part of it that is happening on my property. She stood very still. No private meeting. No hiding me. No one touches him unless I say there is an immediate danger. Agreed. And I decide whether I call the police. Yes. You are not going to ask why I didn't do it earlier? No. Why not? Because you already know why. You were trying to keep everyone else from becoming part of it. For the first time that night, Elena looked directly at him without trying to make her face pleasant. How did you know I was still in the kitchen? Dante leaned against the edge of the desk. You always finish the herb inventory after the last dessert leaves. You know that? I know you cut the labels straight when you are calm and crooked when you are tired. Tonight they were crooked. She stared at him. You have been watching me. I have been paying attention. That is a dangerous distinction coming from you. The corner of his mouth moved. I know. She should have been angry. Instead, warmth touched a place in her chest that fear had kept numb. I don't want your pity, she said. You don't have it. Then what do you have? He looked at her for a long moment. A preference. She almost smiled. That sounds very romantic. It is the most honest word I have. I prefer the kitchen when you are in it. I prefer soup without fennel. I prefer hearing you tell me when I am standing in the wrong place. And I prefer you alive, employed, and walking out of this building through whatever door you choose. Her eyes filled again. This time the tears were not only fear. You make it sound as if I am a part of the building. No. The building is replaceable. He left the resignation note on the desk. You are not. Elena looked down before he could see how much the words had reached her. From the ballroom, applause rose and faded. The event was still running. The world had not stopped because she was crying in a pantry. But Dante had made room for her pain inside the night. That was more dangerous than a locked door. It made her want to stay. The next morning, Elena arrived before the first delivery truck. She almost turned around when she saw the Moretti crest on the security station. A new guard stood beside the employee entrance, not blocking it, not questioning anyone, simply present. The sight made her shoulders tighten until she noticed the guard had a printed list of staff names and a cup of coffee balanced on the desk. He looked up. Ms. Russo? Mr. Moretti asked me to tell you the front entrance is open whenever you want it. The employee door is open too. He asked you to tell me that? Yes, ma'am. She walked past him before he could see her smile. The kitchen was already warm. Steam clouded the windows, and the morning crew moved around one another with the quick, silent coordination Elena had spent years building. She checked the produce, corrected a delivery count, and found a missing box of lemons before anyone asked. Work returned to its familiar shape. Dante appeared at 9:15, without a jacket and without the entourage that usually announced his arrival. His sleeves were rolled to his forearms, showing a narrow band of black-gray ink near his left wrist. He stopped at the entrance instead of walking into the prep lane. Elena pointed at the floor. You are standing in the path. He moved immediately. One of the younger cooks stared. Dante Moretti, who could make a room of investors wait in silence for 10 minutes, had just been redirected by the woman who sorted parsley. Elena tried not to enjoy it. You slept? Dante asked. A little. A little is not an answer. It is the only one I have. He accepted that. There was no lecture about rest, no offer to send a doctor, no attempt to turn her into a fragile object. He looked at the tray in her hands. What are you doing? Making sure the staff eats before the luncheon prep starts. You have not eaten. I am working. That was not my question. The line was his, and the memory of the previous night warmed her despite the cold in her stomach. She placed the tray on the pass. The dishwashers first. Then me. I can live with that order if you add yourself to it. You are not in charge of the kitchen. I own the building. That is not the same thing. He looked almost pleased. You are the only person in this building who says that to me before coffee. Maybe everyone else is afraid of losing their jobs. Are you? She met his eyes. Yes. The answer stripped the playfulness from his face. He moved closer, still leaving enough space for her to step away. You will not lose your job because you tell me the truth, he said. That is easy to say when you own the payroll. Then I will prove it by allowing you to disagree with me in public. He turned to the waiting cooks. Elena is in charge of the prep schedule today. If I get in her way, she is authorized to remove me. The room went silent. Elena stared at him. I did not authorize that announcement. You just did. That is not how authorization works. It is how I work. The cooks laughed softly, the tension breaking in a way that did not make Elena the joke. Dante took a bowl from the warming rack and carried it to the small table near the back window. What is that? She asked. Breakfast. That is soup from last night. It has no fennel. It is cold. I have had worse mornings. She wanted to tell him he could leave. She wanted to tell him she was not ready for the way he remembered small things, or the way his presence made the kitchen feel less like a place she hid and more like a place she had built. Instead, she brought a second spoon. They sat at the end of the prep table while the staff worked around them. Dante took one mouthful, frowned at the temperature, and ate another. You have been coming through here for months, Elena said. Yes. You knew what time I finished. Yes. You knew I removed fennel. You remove it before anyone else can complain about it. You knew I fed the dishwashers first. You always count the sandwiches twice. She put down her spoon. Why? Dante looked at the kitchen, at the cooks who trusted her, at the stack of plates she had aligned without thinking. Because you are the only person here who can make a room full of exhausted people feel like they are not invisible. Her breath caught. That is not why I do it. I know. That is why it matters. He skipped words like beautiful and special. He described what she did when no one applauded. Elena felt more exposed by that than by the tears in the pantry. The phone in her apron pocket vibrated. She left it on the table. Dante did not look at the screen. He watched her hand close around the fabric instead. You can turn it off, he said. If I turn it off, I will worry about what happens when it comes back on. Then leave it on the table. She set the phone between them. The screen lit again. Marco's name appeared, followed by a message preview. You cannot hide behind him forever. Dante read only the first line before looking away. Do you want the venue manager to record this? Not yet. All right. You are not going to argue? You told me not to decide for you. You listen when it is inconvenient. I listen when it matters. She looked at him over the rim of her spoon. Does everything matter to you? No. What does? His eyes settled on her. You do. The answer was too direct to dismiss and too quiet to perform. Elena looked down before the heat in her face reached the rest of the kitchen. For the rest of the morning, Dante did not mention Marco. He stayed while Elena reorganized the prep schedule, moved a delivery, and made a dishwasher take a real break. He watched her argue with a chef twice her age about the order of sauces and win without raising her voice. When she finally turned, she found him smiling. What? She asked. Nothing. That is not true. You are more frightening than I am. That is definitely not true. You just made a chef apologize to a tray of potatoes. The potatoes were innocent. His smile deepened. It changed his face, taking years from it. Dante looked 37 then, not ancient with power, not hardened into a legend. Just a man who had found one person capable of making him laugh before noon. That afternoon, Elena gave him the truth in pieces because a whole truth still felt too large to carry. They sat in the quiet staff room after the lunch service. She kept the door open. Dante sat across from her, hands visible on the table, not touching the resignation note she had brought again. His name is Marco Bellini, she began. We were together for 4 years. The first year was easy. He remembered my birthday. He waited outside my college classes with coffee. When my mother was sick, he drove me to the hospital. Everyone thought he was kind. I thought so too. Dante said nothing. Then kindness became accounting. He wanted to know where I was, who I spoke to, why I took extra shifts. If I did not answer quickly, he would send 10 messages and then apologize for caring too much. If I stayed late, he said I was choosing work over him. I kept explaining myself because every apology sounded sincere. She rubbed the edge of the paper. When I ended it, he said he only wanted one conversation. Then one conversation became a message outside my apartment. Then another outside the market. Then the employee entrance here. He knows I leave after everyone else. He knows I hate making people uncomfortable. So he made your discomfort the price of asking for peace, Dante said. Her eyes lifted. Yes. The mark on your wrist? Last night. He caught me when I told him to go. It was not the first time he grabbed me, but it was the first time he followed me inside. Dante's fingers closed once on the table. He stayed seated and asked no name he already knew. Why did you not tell me? She waited for the accusation that did not come. Because your father made an agreement with his family, she said. I heard people talking about it. The Bellinis have access to Moretti properties. They supply the night kitchens. Everyone says old families do not interfere in each other's private matters. I thought if I told you, you would have to choose between protecting me and keeping your word. Dante leaned back. My father had promised Bellini men protection inside Moretti properties. Marco thought that promise protected him too. The sentence explained the whole night without turning it into a history lesson. I do not want to be the reason you break it, Elena said. You are not the reason. He is the reason. That is a distinction powerful men make after someone else pays the cost. His gaze sharpened, but he met her truth without punishment. Then tell me what cost you are willing to accept and what cost you are not. She had not expected him to put the question back in her hands. I will give a statement if you stay with me, she said. Not if you send someone else. I want the venue manager to record that he entered with the Bellini badge. I want the option to call the police. I want to decide when. Yes. I want to keep working if I choose to. Yes. And if I leave, it will be because I want a different life, not because he chased me out of this one. Dante nodded once. Then those are the terms. She expected relief. Instead, a new fear rose. What will you do? What you authorize me to do? That is not an answer. It is the only one that keeps you in the room. The door opened before she could reply. Carlo Moretti entered without knocking. He was Dante's uncle, broad-shouldered and silver-haired, with the tired face of a man who had spent 40 years translating old loyalties into new threats. He looked at Elena, then at Dante. Bellini wants the matter contained, Carlo said. If their trucks leave tonight, the replacement order will cost you 3 times the usual rate. Then I will pay 3 times the rate. The ballroom is full. The ballroom will be served. Carlo's eyes shifted to Elena. Send her out through the staff exit. Let the family settle this without an audience. Elena's stomach folded in on itself. The side door. The same door she had used for weeks to disappear. Dante did not look at Carlo. He looked at her. Do you want to leave through the staff exit? She thought of Marco waiting there. She thought of the way every step through that door had felt like an apology. No, she said. Carlo exhaled. Dante. The Bellinis can take their trucks, Dante said. They cannot take our doors. Carlo studied him. Your father would have called this reckless. My father is not here. The old man's mouth tightened. He left without another word. Elena looked at Dante. You are going to regret this. I regret something already. What? I noticed you for months and convinced myself distance was respect. I called it restraint because that sounded nobler than fear. She could barely breathe. Fear of what? Of wanting something I had no right to ask for. You are my employer. Which is why I did not ask. And now? Now I am asking what you want me to do. The ballroom doors opened at the end of the corridor. Marco stood beyond them in a dark suit, his Bellini badge catching the light. Two of his family's drivers waited behind him. Guests turned in their chairs. The music faltered. Elena's hand trembled. Dante held out his arm, not grabbing her, not pulling her behind him. You can stand beside me, he said. You can stand alone. You can take the key and leave through the front. She looked toward the polished main doors at the far end of the ballroom. For years she had entered through them only to serve people who never learned her name. Tonight, she would decide whether she walked through them in full view. I will stand beside you, she said. But I will speak first. You will. He offered his arm. Elena placed her hand on it. Together, they walked toward the ballroom. Marco smiled when Elena entered the ballroom. It was the smile he had used in restaurants, at family parties, and once in front of her mother when he had placed a hand at the small of Elena's back and called her his difficult little secret. Tonight the smile did not reach his eyes. There you are, he said. You made everyone worry. Elena felt Dante's arm beneath her hand. He was solid, warm, and still, leaving her in front of him rather than behind him. You came into a private service area after I told you not to contact me, she said. Marco's eyebrows lifted. We are not finished. We are. The words were quieter than she expected. The room heard them anyway. A server near the dessert table stopped with a silver tray in both hands. At the far side of the ballroom, Carlo stood near the doors, watching the Bellini drivers. Marco looked at Dante. She is upset. This is between us. It stopped being between you when you entered my property with a badge you no longer have permission to use, Dante said. Marco laughed softly. Your father never spoke that way to mine. My father is not here. You are willing to break a 20-year agreement because a kitchen worker has decided she does not like being asked for an explanation? Elena's fingers tightened on Dante's sleeve. She had heard that tone in private rooms, behind closed doors, whenever Marco wanted to make her feel unreasonable before he made a demand. Dante did not answer for her. He looked at Elena. What do you want him to hear? Her heart beat hard enough to hurt. Marco's smile thinned. You see? He is putting you on display. No, Elena said. He is giving me the sentence you always took away. Marco took one step forward. Dante did not block him, but the entire room seemed to move with Dante's attention. The Bellini drivers stopped behind their employer. Elena, Marco said, lowering his voice, you know what happens when people misunderstand our families. You will lose this job. He will lose a supplier. Your friends will decide you caused a feud you cannot control. Is that what you want? For years, those were the words that had worked. Not because they were true, but because they made every possible future sound like her fault. She looked at the faces around the ballroom. The sous chef had left the kitchen and stood near the service pass. The dishwashers were still in their black aprons. The young server with the silver tray watched Elena as if waiting to know whether she should run. Elena took a breath. I want you to stop calling me, she said. I want you to stop waiting outside my home and my workplace. I want you to stop using your family's badge to enter places where I work. Our relationship ended. I am not confused, and I am not asking for another conversation. Marco's face went blank. You do not mean that. Ida. You are saying it because he is standing there. I am saying it because I have said it to you alone for 6 weeks and you refuse to hear me. The silence after that sentence felt different from the silence in the pantry. That silence had hidden her. This one carried her words across the room. Marco looked toward Dante. Remove yourself from this. The Bellini agreement protects our access to Moretti properties. Dante's voice remained level. It protected business. It never protected harassment. Your father understood that family matters stay inside the family. My father was wrong about what a family is allowed to hide. Marco's mouth hardened. If you revoke my access tonight, every Bellini truck leaves your kitchens before midnight. Your events will fail by breakfast. Dante turned his head toward the service pass. Rosa. The kitchen director straightened. Sir? Pause service for 10 minutes. Move to menu B, call the independent suppliers on the emergency list. Pay every employee for the full shift and the interruption. No one loses a tip or a night's wages because a Bellini chose to break an agreement. Rosa nodded and moved at once. The staff around her began to work. A sous chef ran toward the cold room. A server took the dessert trays back to the kitchen. The ballroom did not collapse. It shifted. Marco stared at Dante. You have no idea what you are throwing away. I know exactly what I am paying for. He took the black enamel crest pin from his lapel. It bore the Moretti wolf, a small mark that granted the wearer authority in every property the family owned. Dante set it on the nearest service table beside the untouched Bellini delivery manifest. Effective now, the Bellini family has no access to Moretti properties through this agreement, he said. Your trucks may leave. Your drivers may leave. You may leave. But this door does not protect you anymore. Marco's eyes moved to Elena. You did this. The accusation landed like a hand around her throat. Dante's attention snapped to him. No. You did this when you decided her no was an invitation. Marco took another step. One of the Bellini drivers reached for his arm, perhaps to stop him, perhaps to remind him there were witnesses. The driver stopped when Dante looked over. Elena lifted her chin. Do not come back. Marco laughed once, but the sound was empty. You think he will want you when this is over? He likes being needed. He will get tired when you stop being afraid. The sentence found the only place in her that still doubted itself. Dante did not speak over her. He waited. Elena felt the room, the doorway, the key still in her pocket. She had asked him not to make the decision. He had not. He was already looking for me before you gave him something to rescue, she said. He knew my soup, my schedule, and the way I tie my hair when I am tired. You have never known anything about me except how long I would stay quiet. Marco's face changed. For the first time, he looked like a man who understood he had lost something that could not be reclaimed by an apology. You will regret humiliating me, he said. I am not humiliating you, Elena replied. I am ending a relationship. You are the one who brought it into a room full of witnesses. Dante raised one hand, not toward Marco, but toward the venue manager standing near the front doors. Record the trespass and the revoked access. Elena will give the statement when she is ready. No one questions her tonight. The manager nodded and opened a tablet. Marco looked at the screen, then at the Bellini drivers. His family had expected a private correction and a quiet apology. They had not expected the room to keep a record. He turned away. You are making a mistake, Dante. I have made many. This is not one of them. Marco and the drivers walked toward the service exit. They did not pass through the front doors. They did not deserve the symbolism of that route. The ballroom remained silent until the outer doors closed behind them. Then the kitchen moved. For 10 minutes, no plates reached the ballroom. Knives moved, burners lit, and independent suppliers answered Dante's calls. Use the Hudson route, he told one caller. I don't care if the price is double. Pay the drivers tonight. The event continues. He hung up and looked at Elena. Are you all right? She nodded. I think so. Do you want to stay? She looked around the ballroom. The young server was carrying fresh desserts again. Rosa was calling orders. The dishwashers had started laughing at something near the kitchen door. For a few more minutes, Elena said. I want to see the event recover. Then we stay. He offered no easy label and no promise that the hard part was over. He simply stood beside her while the work resumed. The guests noticed only a changed menu and a different wine. When the next course arrived, they applauded. Elena watched the applause reach the kitchen and understood, Dante had changed the night without sacrificing the people she cared about. When the last table received dessert, Dante turned to her. There is one more thing. She knew before he said it. Behind them stood the narrow employee entrance. Across the room, the ballroom's tall front doors reflected the city lights. Dante held out his hand, not as a command. We're leaving through the front. Elena looked at the hand, then at the door. People will see. Yes. They will talk. They already are. I am still wearing an apron. Then they will see the woman who kept their dinner on the tables. Her eyes burned. You make everything sound simple. No. I make it sound possible. She placed her hand in his. He waited for her first step, then walked beside her. They crossed the ballroom at an unhurried pace. The guests who knew Dante looked away and then looked back, the staff watched openly. At the center of the room, Elena stopped. "I want to say one more thing," she told him. "Say it." She turned toward the venue manager and the tablet. "I will give the statement tonight. I want the access revocation in writing. I want the police option kept open. And I want to go home in my own car." The manager nodded. "Understood." Dante's hand remained open at her side. "Your car is in the employee lot." "I know. The front doors are still your choice." She looked at him. "I am choosing them." Together they reached the entrance. Dante opened one of the tall doors, but Elena stepped through first. Cold night air touched her face. The street beyond the venue was bright with traffic and reflected light. No one stood waiting beside the curb. No gray sedan idled across the road. No voice called her name. For a moment, she could not move. Dante stayed beside her, close enough to be felt and far enough to let the moment belong to her. "I used to think the front doors were for people who had somewhere important to go," she said. "You have somewhere important to go." "Home." "Yes." She looked back through the glass. The ballroom lights reflected around them. Behind Dante, the Moretti crest pin still rested on the service table where he had left it, separated from the Bellini manifest like a small black period at the end of an old sentence. Elena's fingers tightened around his. "I am scared," she said. "I know. I might be scared tomorrow too. Then tomorrow you tell me. You cannot stay beside me every hour." "No. But I can stop pretending I do not want to." She turned toward him. "That is not the same as love." "No. It is the beginning of honesty." The answer steadied her more than a declaration would have. Dante released her hand when she reached for her keys and let her unlock the vehicle herself. "Will you call me when you get home?" he asked. She paused. "As your employee? As the man who has been looking for you in every kitchen he owns?" Her heartbeat stumbled. "I will call you," she said. She drove away through the front entrance. Dante remained beneath the lights until her taillights disappeared. Then he returned to the ballroom, where his family crest and the old agreement waited for him on the table. The next morning, the emergency supplier delivered vegetables before sunrise. The bill was obscene. Dante paid it without complaint. The staff received full wages for the delayed service, plus the overtime caused by the menu change. Rosa announced it in the kitchen, and Elena watched the relief pass from face to face. No one had lost a shift. No one had been asked to apologize for a decision made by men with family names. The Bellini trucks did not return. Dante did not send someone to chase them. He signed the access revocation himself, gave the venue manager the authority to enforce it, and told Carlo that any Moretti property using the old agreement would make the same change. Carlo called him reckless twice. On the third call, he only said, "The new supplier is expensive." "Send me the invoice," Dante replied. "You are really doing this for her?" Dante looked through the kitchen window. Elena was showing a new dishwasher how to arrange the racks so the glasses would not chip. "I am doing it because no one gets to use my father's promise as a weapon against her." Carlo was silent. "And because I want her here," Dante added. He ended the call before his uncle could turn the admission into advice. 3 weeks after the banquet, Elena still checked the employee entrance before she stepped through it. The difference was that she no longer checked it alone. Not because Dante had placed a man behind her every time she walked. He had offered that once, and she had refused. Instead, the venue manager had changed the access system, the Bellini badge had been deactivated, and every employee had received a new card. The measures were ordinary enough to fit inside a workplace memo. They did not turn Elena into a problem everyone had to manage. She kept her job. She chose to move her closing shift earlier twice a week. She told Rosa that she wanted to leave with the evening crew instead of waiting until the kitchen emptied, and Rosa adjusted the schedule without asking her to explain. The official statement took 20 minutes. Elena described the calls, the messages, the waiting, the entrance badge, and the grip on her wrist. She signed only after reading the page twice. The venue manager gave her a copy. Dante sat in the same room but did not speak for her. Marco never returned. There was a hearing about the trespass notice. There were forms. There was a request for him to stop contacting her. None of it became a second story. The world did not require a dramatic courtroom to believe her. A clear record, a revoked badge, and her own voice were enough to change the doors. The Moretti events continued with independent suppliers. The replacement vegetables cost more. The wine list changed. Dante paid every difference, and the Bellini name disappeared from the kitchen manifests one line at a time. When he came to see her, he left the subject alone. He came in daylight now. The first time, he stood outside the kitchen entrance at 2 in the afternoon with no jacket, no tie, and 2 paper cups of coffee. Elena was sorting herbs at the prep table. I am not here to inspect anything, he said. That is disappointing. The parsley has been misbehaving. I was told you are the only person qualified to handle it. She looked at the cups. One of those is mine. If you want it. She took the cup. It had the right amount of milk. She glanced at him. You asked Rosa. I asked you 3 times. You answered with your eyebrows. My eyebrows are private. Not to me. The words carried enough heat to make her forget the coffee was hot. Dante placed his own cup on the counter. I want to ask you to dinner. Her hands stilled over the herbs. You are my employer. Yes. You own the venue. Yes. You could make my life very difficult if I say no. His face changed. He set his cup down and stepped back from the table. Then you should know the terms before you answer, he said. If you say no, your schedule, pay, and position remain exactly as they are. I will not ask again unless you bring it up. The dinner would be outside work, in a public place, and you would arrive and leave in your own car. She studied him. You have rehearsed this. I have negotiated more complicated contracts. That is not reassuring. I am not trying to negotiate you. Then what are you trying to do? Ask whether you would like to know me when I am not standing between you and a locked door. The answer slipped past her defenses. She turned back to the herbs. I need time. Take it. He picked up his coffee. For the record, I will be at the little Italian place on Mercer Street Friday at 7. If you decide you want to come, I will be there. If you do not, I will eat alone and return to work on Monday as though nothing happened. You are giving me a deadline. I am giving you a location. You really are terrible at romance. I have been told I am better at soup. She laughed before she could stop herself. He left without touching her. On Friday at 6:55, Elena sat in her car across from the restaurant with both hands on the steering wheel. She had changed out of her uniform into a dark blue dress she had bought for her mother's birthday and never worn. It was not expensive. It made her feel like someone who could walk into a room without carrying plates. At 7, she entered. Dante stood when he saw her. He wore a charcoal suit, no visible crest, and the same short, neat beard. The restaurant owner greeted him, then looked at Elena with a smile that held no curiosity. I reserved the corner table, Dante said. You reserved the entire restaurant? No. I asked for a table where you could see the door. She stopped. He noticed. Too much? No. Just accurate. He pulled out the chair and then let go before she sat, leaving the action to her. She sat across from him. The first 20 minutes were awkward. Dante was used to making people talk by asking precise questions. Elena told him she disliked being interviewed. He put down his fork. Then tell me something I cannot find in a file. She thought. I can tell when bread is going stale by smell before anyone else can. That is useful. It is not interesting. I find it interesting. You find everything about me interesting because you have been watching me for months. That is true. You do not deny it. I am trying a new approach. She told him about the old bookstore near her apartment, her mother's habit of putting cinnamon in tomato sauce, and the golden retriever she had loved as a child. Dante told her he had once spent 3 hours repairing a motorcycle because the mechanic had insulted him, then realized the mechanic had been right about the engine. You can admit when someone is right? She asked. Privately. That is progress. When dinner ended, he walked with her to her car but stopped at the curb. Thank you, she said. For coming? For making it possible to leave if I wanted to. His eyes warmed. Did you want to leave? Twice. Only twice? You talked about motorcycles for 11 minutes. It was a complicated motorcycle. She smiled. He held his position. The space between them became a question neither of them needed to say aloud. Elena stepped into it. She touched his lapel, then kissed him. It was brief, deliberate, and entirely hers. Dante's hand stayed at his sides until she drew back. Only then did he lift one hand to her cheek, waiting for her to lean into it. Was that pity? He asked. No. Relief? No. Then what was it? She looked at the man who had once locked a door to keep a threat away and left the key where she could take it. A preference. His smile was slow and unmistakable. I can live with that. Their relationship grew over time. Elena kept her own apartment, car, and schedule. Dante asked before visiting the kitchen. She told him when she wanted solitude. He learned that wanting her never entitled him to her time. He also learned that she liked to walk through the farmer's market before work on Saturdays, that she hated roses but loved basil flowers, and that she became dangerously competitive over crossword puzzles. She learned that Dante could sleep through gunfire but woke if a refrigerator motor changed pitch. He hated crowded elevators, loved old black and white films, and had never learned how to chop herbs without crushing them. "You are holding the knife wrong," she told him one Sunday morning. They were in a small test kitchen at one of the Moretti venues, reviewing a new staff menu. No guests were present. No family members watched from the doorway. Dante had insisted on helping and had been losing a battle with a bunch of parsley for 5 minutes. "I have held knives correctly for most of my life," he said. "You have held them like weapons. This is basil. It is not afraid of you. Everything is afraid of me. That is not a personality." He placed the knife down. "You are very demanding. You like that." "I do." The admission moved through the quiet kitchen. Elena rested her palms on the counter. "Do you ever regret choosing me?" The question had been waiting inside her for weeks. She expected a quick answer dressed up as nobility. He took his time. "I regret that I thought keeping distance would protect you," he said. "I regret that I let an old agreement tell me what kind of man I was supposed to be. I do not regret you. Even when the bills arrive? Especially then. Bills are honest." She looked away. "I am not a symbol of your rebellion against your father. No. You are the woman who notices when I have not eaten and tells me to move out of the way. That sounds less romantic every time you say it." "It is the most romantic thing I know." She stepped around the counter. "Then show me." Dante kissed her slowly. This time he placed one hand at her waist only after she touched his shoulder. She felt the strength held under his shirt, but none of it took her decision away. When they parted, he rested his forehead against hers. "You are still allowed to change your mind," he said. "I know. I will keep asking. I know. You are not going to make this easy for me. You have enough easy things." He laughed against her hair. By the time winter began, Elena had stopped checking the employee entrance every morning. She walked through it when the kitchen schedule required it and through the front doors when she wanted the light. Neither route needed to prove anything. Marco's name appeared once in a message from the venue manager. The order had been extended, and the Bellini access request was denied. Elena read it, closed the message, and returned to her inventory. Dante did not ask her to celebrate. He knew some victories were quieter than a man with power expected them to be. Their relationship became visible without an announcement. He waited for her after work in a gray coat. She corrected the way he held a kitchen towel. He learned not to call her during the hours she spent with her mother on Sunday evenings. She kept a spare toothbrush at his apartment and still refused to let him buy her a new car. "Your brakes make a sound," he said one night. "That is because the car is old. It is because the car is dying. It has character. It has a death wish. Then respect its choices." He looked at her until she laughed. "I will have the brakes checked," she promised. "Thank you. You are welcome. That was not permission to buy you another car." "I know where you live, Dante." "So do I." The first banquet after the Bellini agreement ended was smaller than the one that had started everything. It took place on a Thursday in early spring. Elena supervised the closing crew. The independent vegetables had arrived on time. The new menu used more herbs, fewer expensive garnishes, and a soup that did not need a family alliance to taste good. When the last guests left, Elena checked the ovens, signed the inventory, and turned off the warming lamps. Dante waited at the center prep table. He had rolled up his sleeves. A cutting board sat before him. Beside it were 2 bowls. She stopped in the doorway. "You made soup?" "I assisted." "That means you watched someone else make soup." "I chopped the basil." She approached the board. The basil pieces were uneven, some crushed, some nearly whole. "You held the knife wrong." "You told me that already." "You ignored me." "I was distracted." "By what?" "You." She looked at the 2 bowls. In the past, she had left one for him and slipped out before he could find her. Tonight there were 2. She had placed the second one there herself before she turned off the lights. "I used to leave you soup because you never ate after an event," she said. "I know. I thought it was a small thing. It was the first thing in my day that did not ask me to be Dante Moretti." Her throat tightened. "And now?" He set down the knife. "Now I want the woman who leaves the soup, the woman who tells me when I am wrong, and the woman who walks through the front door because she wants to. I want you when you are tired, angry, stubborn, happy, and completely uninterested in saving me." Elena moved closer. "You have me when I am stubborn. You have been generous." "I love you," she said. Dante did not move for one heartbeat. His expression lost all of its controlled distance. "Say it again." "I love you." He crossed the space between them, but he stopped before touching her. Elena closed the last inch. Their kiss tasted of basil, salt, and the life they had built in small, stubborn pieces. Dante's hand settled at the back of her neck. Elena held the front of his shirt and felt him breathe against her. When they parted, she rested her forehead against his chest. "You are still terrible at chopping herbs," she whispered. "I have other strengths." "You are very confident. You like that too." "Sometimes." He pulled out a chair for her, then took the one beside her instead of sitting at the head of the table. They lifted their spoons at the same time. The kitchen was quiet. The ballroom beyond it was dark. No one waited at the employee entrance. No one owned the silence between them. Elena tasted the soup. Too much salt. Dante tasted his. "It is perfect." "You are biased." "I am in love." She smiled into her bowl. "That is not a defense. It is the only one I need." They ate until the bowls were empty. Dante tried to steal the last piece of bread. Elena slapped his hand away, then gave it to him anyway. Outside, the city moved past the tall windows, unaware that the most important door in the building had opened months earlier and never closed again. Elena had once believed her pain was too inconvenient to bring into anyone else's world. Dante had decided it was worth changing an old rule, a supply line, and the way an entire room understood her name. He had not rescued her from her life. He had stood beside her while she took it back. And when the lights in the kitchen finally went out, they left together through the front.